All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Hockey Talk with TG podcast. So, hopefully, you guys are having a great Friday. Lots to discuss on this episode, so we're going to go ahead and get right into it. So, Luke Hughes, he's going to be out 6 to 8 weeks for the New Jersey Devils with a left shoulder injury. He was injured earlier this month during the off-season training. The only good news that comes out of this is that he will not need surgery. So that is good news for Devils fans to hear. That's also good news for him to hear because, of course, he's injured. But he will not need surgery. So that's the good news of this part. But he is going to be out 6 to 8 weeks, and it's most likely that he will not show up for the season opener when the Devils face the Sabres in the Global Series in Czechia. I think that's what it is. Hopefully I pronounced that right. So he will not be available then, so he's going to be able to miss a few games throughout that time. Last season, he did lead all the Devils defensemen with 47 points, so 9 goals, 38 assists for 47 points in 82 games played. Career-wise, he has 49 points in 84 games played, so 10 goals, 39 assists, with 49 points in 84 games played. He got 2 assists in 3 Stanley Cup playoff games in his career, and of course, he was drafted 4th overall in the 2021 NHL Draft. His brother, Jack Hughes, had shoulder surgery in April, but he is expected to be ready for training camp, so at least one of the Hughes brothers will be ready to play, which of course training camp opens next week. So hockey season is just looming around the corner. So it's just taking its time, looming around the corner. And like I mentioned already, the Devils begin their season October 4th. Every other team will still be in their preseason. The Devils and Sabres start their regular season early when they face each other in Prague as part of the 2024 NHL Global Series in Czechia. So they'll be starting their season early while other teams will be still in the preseason. Now we're going to be discussing some teams that are currently in a rebuild that we could see in the playoffs in the next 5 to 10 years. So first and foremost, I'm going to start with my Chicago Blackhawks. So, of course, we got Connor Bedard, the number 1 overall pick in the 2023 NHL Draft. And then most recently in the draft, we drafted Artem Lesnashov from Michigan State University. So we drafted him. 2 great picks right there. So we're in the early stage of our rebuilds. And, of course, Bedard has already made a splash as generational talent. He won the Calder Trophy last season for Rookie of the Year, which he got 61 points at that time. So he has already made his presence known in the NHL. And can't wait to see what he does in his second year in the NHL. Lesnashov, big defenseman to watch for the Chicago Blackhawks. So he will be on that blue line right there. He should be like first or second pair on that defensive pair for the Chicago Blackhawks. So he's expected to be an anchor on the blue line with his elite 2 play. And, of course, the team has some veterans on the team. Of course, they got Taylor Hall. They got Tyler Bertuzzi. Alex Martinez coming in for the team. So they got a few veterans. And, of course, they have a lots of young talent on the team. So they're currently the number 1 team in the rebuild that we could see in the playoffs in the next 5 to 10 years. As a Blackhawks fan, really hope that this happens because I would love to see some Blackhawks playoff hockey at the United Center. I know the Madhouse on Madison will be buzzing when it happens, just like it does every time the Blackhawks are in the playoffs. But, of course, that youth core has got to develop. It's got to improve. And then when it does improve, we could see the Blackhawks be back in the playoffs for playoff contention. Next on my list, of course, San Jose Sharks are most recently drafting Macklin Celebrini, 1st overall in the 2024 NHL Draft. And then, of course, they got Will Smith. So, of course, Macklin Celebrini, he should come out all stones blazing in the NHL. Of course, he won the Hobie Baker Award during his time at Boston University. I think Boston University or Boston College. He did play for one of those Boston teams. I did watch it in the Frozen Four. Unfortunately, he didn't win. So the Sharks, they're still in the process of their rebuild, but they're going to be an interesting team to watch this season just to see how Macklin Celebrini plays, how Will Smith plays, and, of course, the other guys on that team that's young. They still have, like, a few veterans. I know they got Yaroslav Askarov. Well, he's not a veteran. he's a rookie, but I'm just saying that the team is still in the rebuilds. I know Yaroslav Askarov didn't get any playing time for Nashville. He should get lots of playing time for San Jose, so that was like a solid pickup from Mike Grier. They do got like a few veterans on the team. I just can't name them at the moment, but they got lots of young talent on their team, and we could see them in the playoffs in the next 5 to 10 years, maybe back in the Stanley Cup final for the first time since 2016, but that talent, everything has to improve for the San Jose Sharks in order for them to be a playoff team. And then, of course, we got the Columbus Blue Jackets. So they're sort of in a rebuild. They do got young players themselves like Adam Fantilli, Gavin Brindley, Adam Boquist, another solid player. And, of course, most recently being Caden Lindstrom, who was drafted fourth overall in the 2024 NHL draft. So, of course, the Blue Jackets, I think they finished last in the division last season, so they still are trying to improve, like get key pieces for them. I know the team and, of course, the Calgary Flames are still mourning the passing of Johnny Gaudreau, so they're still trying to get through that. And overall, the team is absolutely looking forward to getting back into the playoffs in the next at least 5 to 10 years. So can't wait to see what the Blue Jackets does, and we'll hopefully see some playoff hockey by then from the Columbus Blue Jackets. And then last on my list, we got the Anaheim Ducks. And, of course, the Ducks, another young team. They added another top talent in the 2024 NHL draft, drafting Beckett Sennett, who will be out for a while because of an injury. And he's known for his dynamic offensive play. Alongside players like Trevor Zegras and Mason McTavish, Anaheim, they have a great young core that could form as one of the most exciting forward groups to watch in the NHL. Few years away from playoff contention, but with that young core, with that young talent on their team that they have, they can somehow be a team to watch in the next 3 to 5 years as they progress through their rebuild. So, but overall, the teams that I said, different timelines, different settings, as you like to call it, and different ways to show how they could be potential for playoff contention over these next 5 to 10 years. As a Blackhawks fan, I'm really hoping to see the Blackhawks in playoffs, and hopefully in the next 5 to 10 years they take home the Stanley Cup, because we have not won one since 2015. And it feels like almost a decade ago. It's closing in on a decade ago when we reach 2025, of course. But, yeah, can't wait to see these teams back in the playoffs, especially the Blackhawks, since I am a huge fan of them. Like I said on this podcast many times, and like I said on my TG Hockey channel many times. Now we're going to be talking about what can we expect from Connor McDavid and Oilers heading into this season. So we did discuss a little bit of this on my podcast already, but we're just going to reiterate. So heading into the 2024-2025 NHL season, the Edmonton Oilers and Connor McDavid are still expected to be contenders for the Stanley Cup. No doubt in mind that they'll win the Stanley Cup next season after an unbelievable Cinderella type-ish kind of run to the Stanley Cup final last season. So, of course, Connor McDavid, he won the Conn Smythe Trophy in the 2024 Stanley Cup playoffs with 42 points. And he remains the heart of this team, expected to maintain his extraordinary level of play, especially with consistent line mates like Zach Hyman, who had a career-high 50 goals last season, so he was absolutely another player to watch. And, of course, they still got some talent on the team, too, like Leon Draisaitl, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, and in free agency they added Victor Arvidsson and Jeff Skinner, Vasily Pokanin, who can provide some secondary scoring, so they won't have to rely on players like Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl to strengthen that offensive depth. And, of course, on defense, of course, Evan Bouchard, great defenseman to watch. He's an offensive defenseman. That's like, I describe his style of game like that, so he's an offensive defenseman to watch for sure. And, of course, Matthias Ekholm, another great defenseman to watch. And the goaltending, of course, remains a concern if this team will contend for a Stanley Cup potential, win the Stanley Cup next season. So, of course, that will be a strong factor. So, Stuart Skinner will need to be excellent. He needs to play in, like, Vezina Trophy style form, which I know that's crazy to say because he hasn't even won the Vezina Trophy. but he needs to be in that form in order for the team to contend for a Stanley Cup. Of course, they got Calvin Pickard as their backup, who's a solid goalie, but could be shaky for the team. So if he can win at least a few games for them, they can somehow be in the Stanley Cup playoffs. They did lose players like Warren Fogle, Dylan Holloway, and of course Ryan McLeod, but I still believe they have a shot at winning the Stanley Cup. It could potentially finish first place in the Pacific Division. That's what I said on my Western Conference predictions video standings. If you guys missed that video, you want to go ahead and check that out. So that's what I think about the Oilers. Like, what can we expect from them heading into the season? They still should be a Stanley Cup contender for sure, and no doubt in mind that they will take home the 2025 Stanley Cup for next season. Now we're going to be moving on. So top 2 teams to watch from each division this season. I want to do top 3 because there's like some solid teams that we could be watching, or teams that we find interesting to watch. I said this on my podcast a bunch of times already, but I'm just going to reiterate for you guys. So number 1, New Jersey Devils. Of course, Luke Hughes is going to be out 6 to 8 weeks. Jack Hughes had a shoulder injury in April, so he should be ready to be in the training camp, and we should see him on opening night at the start of the 2024-2025 season. The Devils in general, they have one of the most dynamic rosters in the league with a young core of talent. So like from Jack Hughes, Luke Hughes, Nico Hischier, and lots of talent to name. And they did get Tomas Tatar back on the team, so he should be playing on that third line, I'm believing. So I'm going to have to look back at the Daily Faceoff website just to be sure. But they do have a lot of talent on the team, and especially the goaltending as well. Adding Jacob Markstrom and, of course, Jake Allen as the backup, that really strengthened the goaltending. Of course, Sheldon Keefe will be taking over as head coach of the New Jersey Devils. Assistant coach is, of course, Jeremy Colleton, who used to coach the Blackhawks. So they should really make a run to the playoffs this year. I don't know why they didn't make the playoffs last season, because I thought they were going to be a great team to watch in the playoffs. I thought they were a playoff team last season, but of course they weren't. But they should make it back into the playoffs this season. And of course, number 2, I have the Pittsburgh Penguins. I think they have a shot at finishing in a wild card spot. I said this on my podcast a few times, but hey, we're right around the corner from hockey season, so why not bring it up again? So they added pieces like Rutger McGroarty, Kevin Hayes, Cody Glass, Matt Grzelcyk, and hopefully with Sidney Crosby entering his 20th NHL season. I know it seems so shocking to believe, like 20th NHL season, that's unreal. So hopefully during the final era of Sidney Crosby and getting Malkin and Chris Letang, we could see the Penguins back in the Stanley Cup playoffs one last time with that group, because that's going to be so exciting to watch. And I don't know what the future will hold for Sidney Crosby after this season with the Pittsburgh Penguins. Could he sign with another team like Steven Stamkos? Is he going to call it quits and hang up the skates? We don't know. We could see anything from him after the season, because I don't think, and this will upset a few Penguins fans, we may not see him part of the team after this season. I know that's going to be so upsetting to hear, especially if you're a Penguins fan, but we did see the same situation with Steven Stamkos. His time in Tampa is coming to an end. Decided to sign with the Nashville Predators for a 4-year deal, so we could see the same thing with Sidney Crosby, or he could just hang up the skates and retire. Don't know. For the Atlantic Division, I got the Tampa Bay Lightning. Tampa Bay Lightning, they're going to be another interesting team to watch, because I believe they still have a shot at making the Stanley Cup playoffs even without Steven Stamkos on the team. They'll be led by guys like Nikita Kucherov, Victor Hedman, Braden Point. Of course, they added Jake Guentz on the team. And of course, if Andrei Vasilevsky beats an Vezina Trophy form, if he beats an elite goalie, we could see the Lightning back in the playoffs, which I have no doubt in mind that they'll be a playoff team heading into this season. Even without Steven Stamkos, I still believe they can get it done. And they probably might be going to at least the second round. They probably won't have a deep playoff run, but they will still for sure be a playoff team, even without Steven Stamkos. Maybe not a Stanley Cup contender, but a playoff contender for sure. And then number 2 on my list, I got the Ottawa Senators. So, of course, they got some talent on the team, too, like Tim Stuso, Brady Tkachuk, Claude Giroux, a veteran that they added. Of course, he's already been on the team. And then they added Michael Matteo, of course, David Braun. They got Omar can go. I know I doubted them for a second, but I believe that they might have a shot at finishing wild card in the Eastern Conference. The defense is solid too. They got a lot of depth on the offensive end. Of course, if Drake Batherson bounces back and beats healthy, he can provide some secondary scoring. Same thing with Josh Norris on that second line, because I think he will be playing on that second line, but I'm not really sure. But just had to look back at daily face-off to see if it's accurate. But with that, if Drake Batherson, Josh Norris beats healthy, and they provide secondary scoring, we could see Ottawa in a wild card spot and potentially back in the Stanley Cup playoffs. For the Central Division, I have the Nashville Predators. I think they'll be another interesting team to watch since they added players like Steven Stamkos, Jonathan Marchessault, Brady Shea on the defensive pair. Could be playing with Roman Josi, but not sure. They did lose Ryan McDonough to the Tampa Bay Lightning, so he's back on that team now. And, of course, they added Scott Wedgwood in that. They got him from the Dallas Stars. So I'm really excited to watch this Nashville Predators team. I think they have a shot at finishing third in the Central Division, probably be one of the top three teams in the Central Division right there. So I really think they're going to go all out. Probably not win. They won't win the Stanley Cup this year, but probably another few years they probably will take home the Stanley Cup. But they'll be an excellent team to watch this season for sure. And then, of course, the number 2 on my list, I have the Chicago Blackhawks. And it's because they added guys like Tyler Bertuzzi, Alex Martinez. Of course, Taylor Hall's going to be back in the lineup. Hopefully he doesn't get injured. Of course, they're still a rebuilding team. I know most people will probably disagree that I have the Blackhawks as an interesting team to watch, but as a Blackhawks fan, I got to choose the Blackhawks. I think they'll somehow put on a show. Well, maybe not a show, but they will somehow at least do slightly better than they did last season. They won't make the playoffs for sure, but hopefully they do slightly better than they did last season because, of course, last season was just terrible. And I know they still have some young talent on the team from Connor Bedard, who took home the Calder Trophy last season, Artem Lechesov, who they drafted. They got Frank Nazar, who made his NHL debut last season against Carolina, and just other young talent on the team. They got a couple of veterans like Bertuzzi, Nick Foligno, Seth Jones, but they still got some young talent that can somehow improve the team. We could see the team back into the Stanley Cup playoffs. For the Pacific Division, I got the San Jose Sharks. Of course, like the Blackhawks, the Sharks are also rebuilding. They're still trying to contend for the playoffs, but it won't be this year for sure. But in the next 5-10 years, we could see the Sharks back in the playoffs. Of course, they got exciting young prospects like Macklin Celebrity and Will Smith, who I think used to play for the same AAA team together when they were younger. I'm not sure. And of course, they added Tyler Toffoli on the team as well, so that could potentially help them get into the Stanley Cup playoffs. And like I mentioned already, they got Askarov on the team, who will be an exciting young goalie to watch. He didn't get playing time for the Nashville Predators, but he should get a lot of playing time for the San Jose Sharks, so he'll be a young goalie that I would say to keep my eyes on. And, of course, I got the Edmonton Oilers. Oilers still looking to get over the hump after losing the Stanley Cup Finals. No doubt in mind that they'll take home the 2025 Stanley Cup. Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, still the best duo in hockey to watch. And I really think they made some improvements in the offseason that can somehow get them back in, well, they'll be in the Stanley Cup playoffs for sure, and they will also be a Stanley Cup contender for sure. So they'll be a team I would say will be interesting to watch for the Pacific Division. All right, now we're going to discuss key dates for the 2024-2025 NHL season. So, of course, next Saturday will be the NHL preseason. So that'll be September 21st. I think there will be like 3-4 games that day, but not sure. Had to take a look back at the schedule, but I know it starts next Saturday. October 4th will be the global series between the New Jersey Devils and Buffalo Sabres. So they start their season early, and that's going to be exciting game to watch because, of course, both teams have lots of young talent on them, and both teams could potentially be in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Sabres, they have a shot at making the playoffs. I know that sounds hard to believe considering that they'll never make the Stanley Cup playoffs, but I think with all that talent and with Lindy Ruff behind the bench coaching them, we could see them in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Besides, I didn't think the goaltending stats were that bad last season from Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. I think he had a solid year last season, so he has some solid stats right there. Of course, they added in James Reimer from Detroit, who could potentially be backup, and Devin Levi, of course, over these next few years, he will grow and be an NHL elite goaltender. So the goaltending is not bad either. The offense is not bad. Defense is solid. I really do believe that this team has a shot at making the playoffs this season. So Devils, Sabres, Global Series, October 4th, that'll be a game for sure that I will watch. And then on October 8th will be opening night of the regular season. So, of course, Devils, Sabres, they start their season early. I just discussed that. All the other teams will be in the preseason at that time. But then on October 8th is opening night. So we got Blues and Kraken at 3:30 p.m. Central Time, followed by Bruins and Panthers. So, of course, the Panthers will reveal their Stanley Cup banner and raise it up to the rafters. That will be on at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. And then, of course, last game of the night, Chicago Blackhawks, Utah Hockey Club coming on at 9 o'clock p.m. Central Time. And all these games will be on ESPN and ESPN+. October 10th, Blues and Sharks. We could see Macklin Celebrini debut. Of course, that will be the home opener for the San Jose Sharks, and of course their first game of the season. So potential Macklin Celebrini debut right there. That will come on at 9:30 p.m. Central Time on Hulu and ESPN+. October 7th will be Macklin Celebrini versus Connor Bedard. So of course, two first overall picks in their respective drafts. That will be an interesting game I would want to watch right there. Interesting game for like all hockey fans to watch in general. October 28th, we could see the return of Steven Stamkos in Tampa, so he's going to be coming back to Tampa for the first time since signing with the Predators in the offseason. Of course, that will be an emotional tribute that the Lightning will put on for Steven Stamkos, considering that he's been the captain for them probably for like over a decade. I think he played like 15, 16 seasons with Tampa, but I'm not really sure if I'm right. Correct me if I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, just reply down in the comments if you're watching this on YouTube. December 16th will be the first Stanley Cup final rematch between the Oilers and Panthers. So that'll be the first time we get to see these two teams go at it since the 7-game series in the Stanley Cup final. And then, of course, will be the Christmas break from December 20th to December 27th. So we get a nice little Christmas break right there. Get to watch some NBA games on Christmas, probably Warriors and Lakers playing against each other. And we could see the Celtics playing in that span. So nice little break for hockey fans right there, just to watch a couple of NBA games on Christmas. And then December 31st will be the 2025 NHL Winter Classic. So that will feature the St. Louis Blues and Chicago Blackhawks. They will be playing at Wrigley Field right there. So I can't wait for that. It's going to be Wrigley Field, Chicago, Illinois. Iconic baseball stadium, by the way, besides Yankee Stadium and, of course, Dodger Stadium, another iconic stadium right there. And then there's a few more that comes to mind, but those are just my only three. And then from February 12th to February 20th will be the 2025 NHL Four Nations Face-Off. So it will be U.S., Canada, Sweden, and Finland going at it. And the trade deadline will take place on Friday, March the 7th. It will start at 2 o'clock p.m. Central Time. And then on April 17th will be the last day of the regular season. So April 17th, 2025 will be the last day of the regular season. And then the Stanley Cup playoffs start on April 19th. 2025 will be the start of the Stanley Cup playoffs, and then, of course, April 17th will be the last day of the regular season. April 19th, 2 days later, will be the start of the Stanley Cup playoffs, and then the last possible day of the Stanley Cup final will be June 23rd, 2025. So lots to keep in mind right there, and, of course, lots of key games to keep an eye out for. So, yeah. All right, guys, so that is going to do it for this episode. So thank you guys for tuning in as always. I know there were like some parts of me where I was like stuttering and stuff. But I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Really do appreciate it. So hopefully you guys have a great rest of your day. Hockey season is just around the corner. Next Saturday will be the preseason. Of course, opening night is on October 8th. So can't wait for that. So hopefully you guys have a great weekend, great day. God first as always. Be blessed. And I will see you guys Monday for another episode of the Hockey Talk with TG podcast. Take care.